All right, everyone. I am here today. I have a special guest. I want to make sure that we are able to see his campaign, that he is now, he's a gubernatorial candidate in Florida. So I want us to make sure that we have some options and that we explore all of our options for voting in Florida. So I want to right now show you all his campaign, and then we're going to bring him in because he is blessing us with his presence today. He has some time to share with us, and I want to make sure you all meet James Fishback. Okay, so I'm gonna play this and let's see, get this rolling, and then you'll know who I'm talking about.
Can make life more.
Let's see, I'm gonna go back and start it from the beginning. Let's go.
I'm running for Florida governor so I can make life more affordable for you and your family. Easier to afford groceries, to buy a home, to raise said and done, to retire with dignity. I'll do that by stopping the H-1B scam so our workers, especially our college grads, can get jobs again. My name is James Fishback, and I'm running to succeed Ron DeSantis as Florida's next Republican governor. Because Florida is our home, America is our birthright, and we will never let them steal it from us. I'm running for Florida governor so I can...
All right. Okay. So I'm gonna stop playing that. Okay. So I'm gonna bring in. All right. So we're gonna bring in Mr. James Fishback, you all. Let's see. Can you see him on my screen? I'm gonna make sure you all can see him on my screen here on YouTube because he is here with us today, and we want to make sure that you all get to has to say because he's granted us an interview and we have some questions that we want to him and flush out. So welcome, James. How are you?
I'm doing great. Merry Christmas, Conswello.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you. So thank you for taking out the time to interview with us here on X and on YouTube. We really appreciate you taking out that time. So I have some questions already. I wanted to ask you about with everything that's going on right now. I will get to your candidates or your running mates, right? But I wanted to ask you about your background and you being a fourth generation Floridian. What do you mean by that?
Great to be here. What I mean by that is my family has known my state now for 4 generations. My great-grandfather, Clifford Lincoln Fishback Sr., fought in World War I and then went on to run and own a small hotel on Fort Lauderdale Beach, right at the intersection of Sunrise and Day. My father fought in World War II, was a cattle rancher in Okeechobee by day, was a college professor by night. My own dad cut trees for a living and was sadly replaced by illegal immigrant labor after the Haitian earthquake that lost his business, and then went on to proudly drive the city bus in Broward County, where I was born and raised for a decade. And now me, born and raised Floridian in South Florida, now proudly calling North Florida home.
Okay. And I will say I am a transplant to Florida. So I'm originally from Tennessee, but like you have had grandfathers that fought in World War II and veterans in my family as well. And we'll get to it, but we know that immigration is impacting Americans, right? And we know that immigration has impacted the freemen on numerous occasions. So this is a pattern for us to keep going through, but we'll get into that. So another question I have for you is, um, what made you decide to run for governor? Because you're very young, you're 30 years old.
Well, Lord willing, I'll be 31 in a week from now, which will be a nice little feather in the hat. I'm running because we need a governor to pick up the baton from Governor DeSantis. Sadly, he's term limited, but I'm running really to do 2 things, Consuelo. I'm running to preserve the conservative wins under this governor, and then running to make life more affordable for our young people, for our families, and for our seniors. And that's everything from housing, property tax, property insurance, auto insurance. I'm paying more to insure the car that I drive than it costs on the monthly car note for that car. And so a lot of things just don't make sense. But here's the truth. It should not be this hard to raise a family and afford to live in what is the greatest state in the country. And so there's one thing that I'm running on, it's affordability, not just because it's nice to pay less and to be able to afford more, but because if our young people cannot buy a home, they cannot get married. If they cannot get married, they cannot have kids. If they cannot have kids, Consuelo, what is then the point? And so affordability isn't just something that is thrown around when it comes to balancing a checkbook or thinking about how far a dollar is going to go at Publix or Walmart. Affordability is literally existential to our people surviving in this state and country.
Yes, I agree totally with you. That's the one reason why I was like, we have you to come on to the Freedman channel and speak to everyone about your passion and why you're running for governor. Now, you are an investor, correct? So, how does
Correct.
this role support you becoming governor of Florida?
Well, I've spent the last 10 years not as a political person, really. I've always been a registered Republican, conservative,
Mm.
and never going to apologize for my political beliefs. But I've spent the
I'm
last
a
10
radical
years as a
Republican, so hey.
and I think that's the cool thing about it is that at the end of the day, we want to separate, the fact that not all Republicans are the same. Not all Republicans, and I respect from my opponent, Congressman Donalds, but he in many respects is more of a Democrat than some of the Democrats are with his policies and his voting record. But to my background, I spent 10 years, the most recent of that little bit, running firm that took investor capital to invest in companies that were doing something radical these days, which is hiring people on their skill and merit as opposed to their race or gender. So when Best Buy came along and said that 1 out of 3 new employees had to be, quote, people of color, that was an insult, one, to Black people, because it assumes that they are themselves not qualified to attain these roles. And you and I both know that's a slanderous lie. And then two, it's an insult against literally everybody else, whites, Hispanics, Asians, to say that, you know what, guys, even if you're qualified, we are not going to bring you into this role. So my investment firm, Azoria, directed up to $40 million of investor capital to invest exclusively in companies that are hiring on our God-given traits, abilities, and on our race, gender, etc. So it's an anti-DEI investment firm. That's been my focus. And what I've learned is that you can say you want to do things, but then you actually have to do things. And these companies, what they've done is they've said they prioritize diversity in hiring. You really want to prioritize diversity. You don't think about it. You have a very aggressive meritocratic pipeline that says we're going to hire someone for the job. If that person happens to be a white man, so be it. If it happens to be a Black woman, so be it. But at the end of the day, if you want to achieve diversity, that should not be your goal. The goal should be to hire the best person possible. The last thing we want is some racial strife between employees about who really belongs here. And I got to tell you, I meet, when I was in college, a young Black girl who always felt the resentment that she didn't belong there. The only reason she got into that school was because of her race and gender. No one deserves to feel that. And no one also deserves to feel that because that they are white, that they should somehow apologize for the alleged sins of their ancestors. We need to get back to basics, and that is a pure and unapologetic meritocracy. That's what my investment firm has been doing, and I'm proud of the work. And I'll continue that work as governor, which is pushing for a meritocracy, pushing for an economic system that works for all of our citizens.
Well, I will say, this whole thing about DEI, people think it's more of the Black Americans that needed the DEI, and it's not even us. I mean, we're a very
No.
small percentage of the DEI, and it's just another way I think that they have utilized race to put others that come here on top of the freedmen. That's the way we look at it, because we're not getting the jobs. You look at our unemployment, we'll talk about that. Our unemployment within our community and how immigration affects our community, legal and illegal. So I appreciate you stating that, because that has been something that people try to say, oh, Black people need certain things to, get jobs. No, we're very comparable people, right? We're very intelligent. We have all kinds of inventions throughout this country that you are utilizing today, and some of them didn't even have a college education. But the other thing I want to talk to you about is your candidate, is, well, before we get to that, heritage American, and you kind of touched on it. Vivek is stating that this doesn't exist. What are your thoughts about that before we get into the candidate?
Well, he's lying. There is a big difference, Consuelo, versus an American that got here 4 or 5 generations ago
Mhm,
who fought in the Civil War on either side of the Civil War. You've got Americans who are descendants of slavery.
mhm.
You've got Americans who have fought in every and according to Vivek, the person who got here 3 weeks ago from Haiti, so long as they sign a piece of paperwork and attest that they're an American, they're an American. We had this logical fallacy a couple of years ago with our progressive friends on the other side, and we would ask them over Thanksgiving dinner, what is a woman? And if you ask Vivek or Byron Donalds, what is an American? They say an American is someone who identifies as an American. No, that is a lie. An American is someone who has pledged their allegiance to our country, who respects the demographic of our country laws, has pledged their unwavering loyalty, their exclusive loyalty to our country. And so when you come here illegally and break our laws, you
Mhm.
cannot be an American. If you come here from Afghanistan, Haiti, Jamaica, and take resources from actual American citizens who are productive, you cannot be an American. And if you come here and you criticize the demographic stock of our country, our way of life, our Christian values, you cannot be an American. And so I 100% believe in the idea of heritage Americans and reject this notion that folks like Vivek Ramaswamy want to traffic in, that an American is anyone who claims to be an American. That's the kind of circular reasoning that we rejected from the left when they pushed the transgender hoax on us.
Right. And that's the whole thing. Like, how can you not acknowledge the natives of the country that built the great nation and say that everyone that comes here is on an equal footing, which it's just not true, right? You have different citizenships. Um, you have naturalized, and then you have natural born. So I agree with you with that. I'm gonna share my screen because then we're gonna get to talking about some of the other things that are coming up, and one of your opponents. And I had to bring this out because this has been a major issue in our community. And I say our community, I mean the freedmen. And a part of it is because we understand everyone was not here. That's why I had to lead with the heritage American. We understand everyone wasn't here during the time of slavery, right? And so it does not stop the fact that there's some things that we have to work on in our country as Americans. But when I look at and hear and listen to Byron Donalds, it's not what he's saying to our people. It was just um, insulting. It was very insulting. So I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna make sure my screen. If you can see this, I'm going to play this, and I want you all to listen. It's about 4 minutes. Can you hear? Nope. Here we go. I'm gonna go back to the beginning. Excuse me. Here we go. Okay, okay. So I'm gonna stop sharing that. But I just wanted to play that one, right? And then just I know this is a challenging topic for people. However, I want people to be able to see how, fortunately, when we have immigrants to come into our country, Americans can't do politics. Be able to do politics for Americans, and this is something that we have to tackle. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that's right. And let's just be completely honest of Donald's is a tether. He is not an American descendant
Wait a minute, James.
of
How do you
slaves.
know the term tether?
He is a tether. He is not an American descendant of slaves. So when Byron Donalds, he has over the last couple of weeks, because I call him a slave to APAC, a slave to corporate interest, a slave to the pro-immigration lobby that has hurt every race of Americans, but has also hurt Black Americans who disproportionately work in hospitality, leisure, and customer service. He is in no position, has no right to be complaining about me calling him a slave when he has a direct descendant of slavery in his family. He's from Panama. He's from Belize. His dad's from Jamaica. Irrelevant. Irrelevant. Here's what I will say.
Okay.
Unequivocally, I do not support reparations in any form. I would not have supported the reparations for Japanese who are interned. I would not have supported reparations for Chinese Americans who were expelled. And I would not have supported reparations and do not support reparations for the descendants of slavery. But here's what I can commit to. I can commit to creating an economic system that works for one group and one group only, citizens living in the great state of Florida. Clear about what has happened because people like Byron Donalds. Last year, he said, quote, "I want anyone from anywhere who wants to come here and work and contribute to come." The problem is that when anyone from anywhere comes here to contribute, they are by definition taking a job that would have gone to someone local as a citizen, a job in agriculture, a job in hospitality, a job in customer service, right by our working citizens. You have to stand up to the immigration influx. Now, Byron Donalds' support, because it's good to increase their profits by bringing in cheap third world labor from the Caribbean, from all over the world, from Central and South America, because those people will work for $4 an hour and our people will work for $15 or $20 an hour. Byron Donalds said 2 weeks ago at the University of Florida that we need to have the H-1B visa program, which brings in Indians and Chinese to take because, quote, our kids are not economically viable. He thinks that our kids are not smart enough, but the Indians and the Haitians, they are smarter than us. And so we have to import them to take jobs away from us. I'll give you just one example. In 2015, he said that we need to use the H-1B visa program to bring in pharmacists. That one of the top pharmacy schools is at FAMU in Tallahassee. How dare he? How dare he say that the graduates of FAMU or FSU or UF are not sufficiently qualified, that he would rather throw them overboard and then bring somebody else on the ship who is from India, China, wherever, it doesn't matter. And so I'm running to do one thing, and that is to make life more affordable. But the precondition of affordability, Consuelo, is having a job. If you do not have a job, literally everything in your life is going to be unaffordable. And if you don't have a job because Byron Donalds is a slave to corporate interests and big super PACs that want to bring in cheap foreign labor, not because they love these people, not because because they will work at half the rate and do double the work. And that is a system that enables the great replacement of all American workers. And I will end that system as Florida governor.
Okay. And thank you for that. And you're running for governor. And now one of the things that we have a problem with is I heard you say you wouldn't support reparations for any group. However, a part of American Constitution, First Amendment, is you have the right to file for redress of grievances against your government. And so some things have happened that we have to rectify, and we do have a past president of the United States that is willing to do some work in that area. But you're about being the governor, and I like that. It's about being the governor and making sure citizens of the state of Florida are put first instead of the immigrants or migrants, as they may say, right? But the other thing that is happening amongst the freedmen is that we are delineating. And we touched a little bit on the heritage part, right? And so I brought up Byron Donalds because he is an immigrant, and he utilized Black. Everybody utilizes Black as it's nothing. I'm Black like you. No, you're not Black like the freedmen. The freedmen are the only Black people in America, right? Because
That's right.
he did go through Jim Crow. He never ever, he doesn't have any descendants here.
No, his family didn't go through Jim Crow. He has no defend. He has no direct. He's not a direct descendant. His family didn't go through any of that. So I don't know why Black calling him racist for saying he's a slave. Conswello, the Oxford Dictionary defines slavery as someone who is controlled by somebody else. Who else would give Byron $40 million in the campaign if he weren't a slave to his donors? And that's the problem, is Floridians of all races need a governor who's going to fight for them. Let me just give you one example of real economic empowerment that does a couple things.
Okay.
Here's my policy. I call it the Florida Sunshine Grant.
Hmm.
And what it says is if you are an American citizen who is a Florida resident and you graduate high school with a 3.0 or higher and a passing score on the SAT, you are going to get a $10,000 check. You can use that money one of two ways. You can use it as the down payment for the mortgage on your home, because we want you to have a home. We want you to have a family. We want you to live out the full arc of the American dream as we're commanded to do in the Bible, to be fruitful and to multiply. Or you can use that $10,000 to invest in yourself, whether it's career training, technical training, or a small business. No strings attached. Now, what is that going to do? That is going to incentivize kids from all over the state, especially in Black communities, to parents more involved and to create a real financial incentive that says if you get good grades, great SAT score, and again, you have to be an American citizen. You cannot be an illegal immigrant. You cannot be a recently arrived immigrant. You have to be an American citizen living in Florida, graduating from high school, meeting those conditions. If you do that, $10,000 is waiting for you on the day of your graduation. Conswello, in 1960, half of working 30-year-olds had a home and were married. Today, less than 15% of 30-year-olds have a home and are married. We are seeing a cultural genocide against American citizens. We can't afford to exist in our own country. We can't afford a home. We can't afford to raise kids. And what I want to do as governor is I want to create a system that, one, increases the standards of academic excellence at our schools, but also actually reward students. We're going to keep the Bright Future Scholarship Program. We're going to keep tuition low for our great public universities like FAMU, like UF, like FSU. But we also have to create the Florida Sunshine Grant, the FSG, that allows our people to have a real opportunity to get ahead. Because when purchased by foreign nationals, when you're being outbid by a foreign national on your first home, you're being outbid by $1,500. That's the difference. Staying in that home, getting married and raising a family, or being stuck on the wrong side of town studio apartment and not be at the full arc of the American dream. And so I am running for affordable because affordability, for everything that's said about it, it is the only way folks can get ahead and actually raise a family and live out what we are all called to do.
Well, let me ask you, does it apply to those that do not decide to go to college, but they want to go to a trade school?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think that's a real conversation we need to have more and more. Everyone says is the way to go. I got to tell you, I meet bright kids every single day, and they are just as excited about getting into technical fields, getting into HVAC, getting into truck, where they can make real money right away in a field that is far more protected from artificial intelligence than some of this white collar work like accounting or entry-level legal work. And so it would absolutely apply to technical school, as would the Bright Future Scholarship. We're going to make sure that applies across the board. But I want to be very clear. That is a $10,000 check at graduation if you get a 3.0 or higher. And one thing I'm also going to do is I'm going to mandate that if you're a student in our public schools, your parents have to show up twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring, for a parent-student teacher meeting. Twice a year. We got to get our classroom. And that is not optional. That is not a recommendation. That is mandatory. The parents have to show up twice a year and meet with the teachers, their students' teachers, and work from there. And then lastly, I want to introduce a disciplinary system where it's a 3-strike policy. If you've got people who are acting up, who are being a disciplinary issue, who are fighting and causing, they will be removed after the 3rd strike. They'll be given 3 strikes. After that, to an alternative school where they'll get an opportunity to finish up school and get a GED. But we cannot have kids who are running around causing trouble, starting fights, bringing drugs to school, and ruining it for the rest of us. The last thing I'll say, because I want to just finish up this point, because you spot on. The American freedmen are spot on this frustration with the mass migration that has come into our country. As governor, I'm going to end the mass migration that comes into our workforce, that steals jobs from blacks, whites, Hispanics, all. But number two, I'm going to sign an executive order as governor that removes illegal immigrant children from our school. Why? Because I was in Southwest Florida earlier this year, and I sat across from a teacher who broke down crying. She had 20 kids in her class, Caribbean and South America. They didn't speak a word of English, so she had to spend precious class time away from the Americans in the room in broken Spanish, holding back the entire class. And our American students do not deserve that. Our school is for Americans. So I'm going to sign an executive order that removes any student who is from our public schools. You don't pay tax dollars. I don't pay tax dollars. The folks watching at home, we don't pay our tax dollars to fund the children of illegal immigrants. Our schools in Florida are for Floridians, are for our citizens. And that's what we're going to do. And by the way, that's going to save us money and allow our teachers to actually focus on the kids who belong here. That's going to totally transform our schools overnight.
And I think you just hit on a major point, because I do know educators in Florida, and they have been complaining about that for the last 3 or 4 years. Like, a lot of teachers left the profession because they could not deal with the bureaucracy of having to sit in a classroom and knowing that all the American children are getting left behind because they're placing all of these immigrant children that can't speak the language into the classroom. And they were very frustrated. So you hit on a great point. The other point I want to make about education is, do you support President Trump's school voucher?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And you know why? Because for far too long, the Democrats insist to support school choice. You know what's racist? To oppose school choice. It is racist to tell a black mother of 3 children that her children have to suffer in a public school that is failing them, as opposed to giving them the option. It would be no different for the children of a white family in Lakeland or a black family in Belglade or Pahokee. The best option that we can give folks is real, genuine education freedom. If that's public school, so be it. If that's private school or Christian school or charter school, so be it. But I want to make something very clear as well. I am absolutely for competition. I'm going to support what the governor and the president have done with universal school choice, but I'm all schools because a lot of people, especially in the Florida Panhandle, which was a hotspot in the Civil War, conflicts like the Battle of Mariana in Jackson County, I am not going to allow our public schools to be abandoned. Because if you live in a rural county like Jefferson or Holmes or Madison, you may not have a private school or a school choice option to send your kids to. And so we are going to make a generational investment in our public schools. We're going to raise teacher pay across the board, at the same time that we're also de-stressing the classrooms by removing the kids that don't belong in the classroom. That's also going to speed up the pace of mass deportations, because when you stop giving the illegal immigrants free childcare and they have 7 kids being a distraction, guess what? They're going to realize maybe we should take the $3,000 from Christine Nome and head back to our country. Let's be very clear about something. It is not brave to break into our country and steal from us, steal taxpayer resources, and break our laws. The brave thing to do is stay right where you are in your country, whether or in South America or in East Africa. Stay where you are. Stay where God put you. God did not make a mistake by putting you there. Stay where you are and make your country great. Don't come here and act like you're entitled to everything when you have contributed absolutely nothing to America.
And that is the goal to America. America is a free fall. We can get whatever we want. America's a welfare state. That's the way I've been looking at it here recently. It's very obvious that the Americans, especially the freedmen, have not been included in as Americans. And it's for me, it's been really challenging to deal with or communicate with people that don't want to acknowledge the history of America. And they get here and say, it's like everything is theirs and they're entitled to everything and they have no equity, no contributions here. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, and I know we're getting ready to close out, but are you polling? Do you believe in polling Floridians that are most important to them?
I do, but I also believe that polls can be highly misleading, and my job is to make the right decisions, even if those decisions are unpopular. It was unpopular at the time for Governor DeSantis and novel virus from China called COVID
Mm.
to actually keep our schools open and refuse to allow our churches to be shut down by radical Democrats, to allow Christians and Jews and Muslims to actually go to their places of worship during a man-made pandemic. That was unpopular, but the governor was right to see through that unpopularity at times and actually do the right thing. So my job, I think, as governor is to always talk to people, to never shy away, to have a two-way street. I can tell you, I've been in this race for 4 weeks and we've already visited a dozen counties.
Mhm.
My commitment is I will visit every single Florida county. No place is too big or too small to meet directly with voters. And Consuelo, I'm not going to these counties to give a 2-hour stump speech. My visits, my meet and greets will look like where I was in Palm Beach County 2 days ago. I stood in a pizza parlor with 8 people. I was in the kitchen and 80 people were surrounding me, and I took questions for 3 hours straight. They were on their feet for 3 hours. I was on my feet for 3 hours. You deserve a governor that you can see, talk to, and even debate with. And my commitment is I may not take a poll on every issue, but I will in effect be polling people by having these open conversations with them. And I'm not always going to agree with them, and they are not always going to agree with me. But I think what we're going to agree on is that we are all Americans, and I'm going to meet you where you are, take your questions, and tell you my perspective on the important issues. And I got a lot to learn. I'm just going to come out and say it. I don't know everything. Like unlike Byron Donalds, know it all. I'm not a cocky, conceited individual who's going to sit around and lecture people on both sides of the aisle. I do not know it all. I'm in this race because I recognize that my state needs someone who's going to step up, who's going to fight for affordability, make it easier to buy a home, afford groceries, get a great paying job, raise a family, and when it's all said and done, retire with dignity.
Mhm.
But I got a lot to learn on the campaign trail. And in just 4 weeks being in this race, we've gotten over 50 million views on social media. I think the poly market betting market on us is up to 20%. So we are hitting the ground running. But the only poll that matters is going to be on August 18th, 2026. I say that because a lot of people will tell me, well, we like what you're saying. We'll vote for you in November. No, I'm not guaranteed to be on the ballot in November
Ooh.
unless you vote for me on August 18th. That's the Republican primary.
Right.
I'm running against Byron Donalds in the primary. Governor DeSantis is term limited. That means that we're now vying for who is going to be that Republican candidate to represent the party in the general election. And so you got a choice. Do you want an America Last Republican like Byron Donalds, or do you want an America First Republican like me, who recognizes that one, we have to stand up to Blackstone, who's buying up our single family homes.
Mhm.
We have to stand up to the construction and overdevelopment that's ruining our state. We have to end foreign immigration in our state that's stealing our jobs and our tax dollars. And we have to create a system that doesn't work for illegals, that doesn't work for immigrants, but works for American citizens. That's why I'm running. And I hope I'll have the opportunity to earn people's votes, not necessarily in this conversation, but over the next 9 months. All people have to do is make sure they're registered as a Republican and they can vote in that Republican primary on Tuesday, August 18th, 2026.
What do you say about the naysayers? Some of them say that you're a Trojan horse and that you're here to offset everything. And then some people don't believe that. I think you said you were Catholic, but they're saying that you're Jewish. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's very interesting that they say that I'm Jewish because they say that I'm Jewish on my mother's side. My mother is Colombian and has been there for at least 10 generations. My father's American, and our side of that family has been here since the mid 1700s.
Mm.
I'm not Jewish. I have respect for Jewish folks and Muslim folks, but I am a proud, unapologetic Christian. I believe that Christ is King. I'll be at Christmas service tomorrow. I'm wishing everyone a Merry Christmas, but I'm proud of the campaign that we have built. And this campaign, I'll tell you, there should be naysayers. There should be skeptics because a lot of people, Democrats, but also Republicans, have made a lot of promises over the last couple of years, and they have failed to hold up their end of the bargain. And so everyone has a right to be skeptical. No one should blindly trust me as their candidate. My only hope, Consuelo, is that I can earn people's trust over the next 9 months, that by August 18th, they'll decide to pick me as the Republican nominee for governor over Byron Donalds.
Okay. Now, one more question with the naysayers. They talk about your investments and
Sure.
your money, your capital. What are your thoughts about that? Because that's now you get ahead of it here, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I worked in the traditional Wall Street world. I worked at a major multi-billion-dollar hedge fund for a guy who is a Soros-aligned billionaire. He told me that Donald Trump belongs in prison. Clearly, I disagree with that.
Mm,
But what I ended up doing when I left is I decided that Wall Street is not working for working Americans, not working for our seniors.
mhm.
And I decided to build an investment firm called Azori that actually stands up to Wall Street and says that, no, we're not going to just blindly channel capital into companies, especially those that hire on DEI. We're going to specifically and exclusively invest in companies that are hiring on skill and merit, as opposed to playing woke social experiments and trying to divide Americans on race. And
Mm,
so my job is as an investor is to look at the landscape and say, you know what? Not all companies are created equal. You know who's created equal? Americans. We are created equally in the image of our Christian God. And at the end of the day, I'm always going to fight for that equality. I did it in the private sector, and I'd be honored to do it as the next governor of Florida.
Okay, so the other question I want to ask, and it's a Chinese investment firm. We just found this out, right? So there's Chinese-owned groups that are buying up schools in the States. Have you heard about that?
Yes.
What do you? Isn't that very odd? What?
It is very odd. It is disgraceful, and it has to stop. The idea is that foreign nationals are coming in and buying up our homes. Can you imagine what that must feel like for a young guy who has recently gotten married, is expecting a young daughter on the way,
Mhm.
and gets outbid by a Chinese national on a home in Lakeland or Orlando or Jacksonville? Dollars for a home that a Chinese national isn't going to live in, but is simply going to speculate on. That was a home that was going to be the starter, the foundation for this young man and this young woman's future. And now a communist has literally stolen it from under them. And so, as Florida governor, I would sign a complete ban that would block foreign nationals from any buying single family homes. I would ban private equity firms like Blackstone and BlackRock from single family homes and then turning around and forcing us to rent them. No, the
Mhm.
American dream is based on the possibility, not the guarantee, but the real possibility of home ownership. And so when my parents bought their first home down in Broward, where I was born and raised, when they bought their first home in 1996, they were bidding only against two families. Today, people are bidding against 15 other people. Half of them are hedge funds, the other half are foreign nationals. Like I said, half of homes in South Florida are being bought today
Right.
by foreign
Mhm.
nationals.
Mhm.
That is not okay. Our homes are for our people. I'm never going to apologize for that. And as governor, I'll protect home ownership for our citizens and make sure that foreigners cannot homes.
Okay, I had a question from one of our other viewers, and they want to know, how do you define woke?
Such a great question. I got to tell you the truth. I think it's a term that gets thrown around a lot these days where it's lost its meaning. But I think that woke in its most insidious form is racial superiority and so it is very much woke for a teacher to stand up in a public school in Florida and tell the white kids to apologize to kids because of the alleged ancestors. It is also woke for that same teacher to tell the black kids that they can never make it, that the system is rigged against them, that they'll never be able to achieve greatness precisely because they're black. White man is holding them back. Those are both slanderous lies. They are weaponized against our white students and our black students. And the most insidious form of woke really is racial inferiority, racial superiority, trying to create a racial caste system in America. The Democrats have done that for years, and we cannot let anyone tell our children that they are somehow guilty for what had happened before by what had happened before. Every single child is created in God's image. Every single one of them is capable of greatness. That's why, as governor, I'll recognize that greatness with the Florida Sunshine Grant, which says if you are great, that you have a 3.0 GPA, you have a passing SAT score, there is a $10,000 check waiting for you the day you graduate. That check can go to your own business, to your own technical training, or it can go for the down payment on your first home. If our young people can get a home, they can start a family, they can live out the full arc dream, the American dream that my parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents have been able to live out. And that's what I would want for the next generation of Floridians. I know that's what our older folks want in their state, is they don't want their kids and grandkids to be subjected to this globalist corporatism that tells them that, you know what, the year is 2030, you own nothing and you should be very happy. No, ownership and equity in our country is preconditional. It is very hard to be an American in America right now. It's very easy to be an illegal immigrant. You'll get free stuff, an Obama phone. You'll get all sorts of handouts. Very easy to be a migrant with an H-1B visa. You'll get a free job. You'll get all the benefits and housing that come with that. It's very hard to be an American in America right now. And I'm running for governor, so it's a little bit easier and a lot more affordable for our people to be able to buy that home, get that job, raise that family, and when it's all said and done, retire. That's what we have to do. But, you say America first. The problem is, whom do you define as an American? If you, like Vivek Ramaswamy, say America first, and then say the people who got here from India 3 weeks ago or Haiti 2 months ago that they are Americans, you can never be America first. I am all for the foundational question when we talk about liberty. Liberty for whom? If it is legals, then that means that there is only slavery for Americans. If it is liberty for the corporations, that means it is only slavery for Americans. Liberty should only apply to American citizens and no one else. Because if liberty applies to every single person in the world who wants to come here and every single big company that wants to screw us over, that means none of us have liberty.
Well, you just had FedEx get the contracts, and they're going to hire the H-1B visas and firing the Americans that are working for the company. This is what I just heard, right? That report.
That's exactly right. And this is a perfect example. What on earth is FedEx doing? Can FedEx not find truck drivers? Can FedEx not find data center operators? Can they not find accountants and administrators amongst our great schools? We're graduating 50,000 accountants from our colleges every single year in America. But you know what? FedEx doesn't care about us. They don't even hire us. They would much rather import cheap foreign labor from India to do the job via the H-1B foreign visa program. Here's what I would do as governor. If you are a company and you have a government contract and you have H-1Bs that you are using over American workers, you will not have a government contract anymore. FedEx also has government contracts with the state of Florida. I would call up their CEO and say, I am canceling that contract. That's within my statutory authority as Florida governor, as the chief executive of our state. I'm going to cancel that contract in 24 hours unless you fire those H-1Bs and rehire the Florida workers that you fired, not because they did anything wrong, but because they were unwilling to compete with third world slave labor. That's what we have to do. We have to not pull any punches. We have to get really aggressive with these people. We might not be able to change every single law, but here's what I can tell you. If you're Amazon, FedEx, Meta, Deloitte, whatever, you have government contracts. And if you have H-1Bs, now is a time, as President Reagan said, now is a time for choosing. Do you want your $50 million government contract or do you want your 500 H-1Bs? You've got 24 hours to choose. There's no negotiating. We must put our workers first, not immigrants.
Yes. And I will say this, okay, for the freedmen, we are delineating, and a part of our delineation is us making sure that we're ethno-aggregating, we're separating, that we're also receiving some of these resources and capitalism, right? And being capital and being a part of this country, right? So we are looking at ourselves doing something a little bit different, more along the lines of like the Bureau of Indian Affairs, where you have majority of the native tribes coming under the federal government, right? And then we have in our own separate offices where we go and we also negotiate some of these deals with our local and state government. And along with that, I wanted to let you know how we, as the freedmen, define woke. Because
please tell me, I'd love to know.
It's really being conscious and aware. Being conscious and aware of what's really happening in your daily life. what is really happening, what around you, being present, being aware. That's what
Yeah.
woke means for us. And when we say that, because we've been in spaces, right, where we were not as I should say woke when we there's trouble and danger. So that's what we mean by woke. But they've taken it and politicized
They've taken it.
it.
Well, they took the word gay and also ruined it, if we want to be completely honest, right? So I by the way, if that's the definition of woke, then I guess I'm woke, right? They're going to clip that and use that against me, right?
Yes.
But yes, I mean, yes, absolutely. We need to be conscious. We need to use the senses that our Lord has given us to be tapped into what is happening around us. But that is never an excuse to weaponize racial lines, gender line, whatever,
Right.
and use it to divide our people. Look, there needs to be some division in this country between the people who are trying to destroy the country and those of us who are from here and are trying to save it.
Mhm.
That's the kind of division that we need. People like Vivek Ramaswamy, they should go back home to India. I'm sorry. What is he doing telling? Listen, he was born here from birthright citizenship. His parents are not American citizens. That is unacceptable. To
Yeah.
come here and say that you've got folks who have been in this country for 5 or 6 or 7 generations and you just got here and you're going to sit around and lecture whites or blacks about American history and what it actually means to be an American. What I challenge Vivek Ramaswamy to do is to sit down with the American freedmen, sit down with the daughters of the Confederacy, sit down with the daughters of the Revolution. It doesn't matter how you might feel about any individual group, but sit down with the people who have been here for a lot longer than you, Vivek, and actually have a real conversation with heritage Americans, because this contempt for heritage Americans, it needs to end immediately. You or I, Consuelo, we wouldn't go to China, not that we would ever go there and want to live there, but we wouldn't go to China or India and say, hey guys, we're now Chinese or Indian. Let us lecture you about your country and let us lecture you about Genghis Khan or about Shi Huangdi or about any part of your history. No.
No.
To the idea that so much of the recent wave of immigration, these people, they are entitled to everything they act, but they have contributed nothing. In fact, the only thing they can seem to contribute is contempt and disrespect for Americans, and that is unacceptable.
I really appreciate you, and the wokeness is why I think I was attracted to your campaign, right? Because I could tell that you were woke, and then the fact of you're Americans first. We are
Right.
quintessential Americans, right? So with that, go, with the president, I stomped for President Trump. I went out. I set up with rallies. I was one of the group with the first rally in the Bronx, New York, because President Trump, I do consider to be, because he's Americans first. Now we're going to have to hold you all to accountable, right? And I was going to ask you, do you pledge we can hold you accountable to what you're speaking on? And we got to record it. So we come back to you and we say, hey, you said this. You're going to do this? Can't change it now. What are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts are you have my complete pledge to always citizens first. A lot of people, Consuelo, will turn to this and say, what's with this hatred for immigrants? No, we don't hate anyone. We have an unapologetic, unwavering love for our people. Our people, they say, how cruel can you be to treat immigrants this way? How about this? How cruel can you be to treat Americans this way? Why don't you have empathy for immigrants, they accuse us?
No,
Why don't you have
xenophobic.
empathy for Americans?
You will be, you're considered xenophobic. The freemen have been considered xenophobic. That's the term.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. No, and I'll tell you right now, if you define xenophobia, right, as a fear, maybe that fear is legitimate that we are scared that we are being replaced. Maybe this idea of the great replacement theory that they call the conspiracy is actually one absolutely true and is an existential threat to our country. We are not an economic zone. We are not a free trade area. We are not Dubai. If you brought all of India and moved them here, they would not be Americans. If you deported every single American to India and imported to America, they would not be Americans. America, as we know it, would cease to exist. And so my commitment to you and to every governor, not for immigrants, not for illegals, not for people who got here 3 weeks ago and want to lecture us about what it means to be an American. I'm going to be a governor for American citizens. And whether that is making sure that our $10,000 Sunshine Grant goes to American citizens graduating from our public high schools and all over the state and private school, homeschool, but if it also means unenrolling every single illegal immigrant child, of which there are hundreds of thousands for our public schools. Our public schools are for our people. They are not daycare for illegals who refuse to speak English. They can stay in their country and learn. That's the brave thing to do. What's brave is to stand up and say, first, and you can call us racist, you can call us xenophobic, you can call us whatever you want. We're done with the pearl clutching. We're weaponization. We are going to put our people first, and we're sick and tired of looking for it.
Now, what about the teachers? Are you going to take care of the teachers too? Because they have a lot going on in the education system.
Yeah, I think a lot of Republicans, sadly, too many of them want to turn, and I don't mean Republican voters, I mean Republican politicians.
Okay.
They want to call out and shame our teachers. I love our teachers here in Florida. I met with a third grade teacher just this past week when I was in Palm Beach County. Work that she has done, and I was a public school kid from kindergarten to high school. I didn't have the universal school choice option. Governor DeSantis wasn't around when I was in high school 15 years ago. But I'll tell you right now, my commitment to our teachers is very simple. I'm going to raise your pay right off the bat. I'm going to raise your pay, the biggest pay increase in 100 years for Florida teachers. And then number two, I am going to create so any Florida teacher within year one of me can make up to $100,000 a year. It's going to be performance-based. We're going to raise baseline pay for every teacher, but I'm also going to create a very simple incentive system that says that based on 3 criteria, quantitative performance of your students, so test scores. Number 2, student evaluations of the teacher. And then number 3, parental evaluation of the teacher. If you get the highest score in each of those 3 categories, you as a public school teacher, doesn't matter if you're in year 1 or in year 30 of your service as a teacher to our students, you will make $100,000 a year. And guess what? That is actually a bargain for the state, because if we can create an incentive system that actually rewards the best teachers across Florida, we will do the best investment on record for our students, because we'll actually allow our students to have the academic focus and the energy of our best teachers. Some teachers will sadly leave this system. They won't want to be rated on performance. I wish them all the best. They may find their passion in another career. This is going to be a performance-based system that's going to be rigorous. It's going to be evaluated, and I'm going to always meet with our teachers to be able to take their question, because I view teachers as the conduit to our students. Parents are the students' first important teacher, but our teachers have a real role to play in what our students are learning every single day. And I want to make sure that our best teachers that are teaching all of our history, not selectively picking out parts of our history, teachers who are going to present both sides of important contemporary debates that are happening in American civic life, teachers that are going to stay after, who are going to sit during lunch, who are going to make themselves available for their students and get the highest ranks possible from student evaluations, from teacher evaluations. And guess what? Those test scores, Conswello, those are going to reflect the teachers who are going to go the extra mile. And the best part about it is we already have so many teachers who in year 1 are going to make the full $100,000. Teachers like my high school history teacher, Linda Fajardo, who now teaches in North Carolina. She would have been that teacher who would have qualified for the full $100,000 because she would have gotten the best. We got everyone in history. 90% of us got 4s and 5s, and she got the highest parental support and student support at the end of the year. This is not doing anything radically different. It is about recognizing the incredible work that our teachers have done in helping our students reach their God-given potential.
Yes, and they are with our children so much during the day. We need them to help them, right, progress. And they're going to be helping our children develop into these scientists, into these mathematicians and engineers. So they should be paid, you know?
Could be. And by the way, if you've got 100 students and those 100 students go on to be brilliant nurses or small business owners, or go on to proudly serve our country in the Marines, the Army, the Navy, the Space Force, the Coast Guard, if you go on and do that, you should be rewarded.
Mhm.
If you are able to tap in and inspire something in our young people, if you're able to step away from the division that so much of the Democrat Party has espoused for far too long, if you're a teacher, and guess what? Especially if you're a teacher who might disagree with the political opinions of your students, if you can check and present a holistic view of some of the most divisive and contemporaneous issues in America right now, gosh, you earn $100,000 a year. You will earn that unequivocally. And I'll be paying every single one of those checks for into the governor's mansion every single year because of the credit for what they are doing for our kids.
All right. I really appreciate you and your energy and your campaign. You are like a breath of fresh air to me. To know that we have someone else out there running for office of governor. I was getting a little deflated with the present candidates because I'm like, who is really going to take up the mantle besides Byron Donalds? He's a forerunner, right? At this present point in time, there, and he's not a choice for many of us. I'll just say that for the freedmen. So we're seeking out other choices for the vote. So with that, I'm so happy you were able to come and share so much of your policy and your campaign with us. Is there anything that going on that you want us to know about that we could support you as you continue your run for gubernatorial for governor? Excuse me.
Well, my hope is that our conversation today, and for the people listening at home or at work, is that this will be the beginning of a relationship. This will be the second date. This will be the first date, and we'll hopefully get a second date, or we'll get to see you on the campaign trail. I'll visit all 67 counties. If you like our vision for the state, if you believe in preserving Florida, if you believe in standing for our people, investment in our public schools, I would be honored to have your vote on August 18th, 2026. You just have to make sure that you're registered to vote as a Republican. You can change that registration if you're an independent, if you're a Democrat who used to be a Republican, or if you want to move over to the Republican Party to vote for our campaign in the primary. I would be honored. That is what we do to win this race. Is we need every single liberty-minded, freedom-loving, unapologetic American to show up on August 18th, 2026, vote for our campaign, get us to the general, and put this vision of Americans first in the governor's mansion, hopefully for 8 years.
Okay, 8 years. You said not 4, 8.
Hopefully 8. I'll come back in 4 years and work to earn your vote again. But I'm taking nothing for granted. We're off to a strong, strong start. What's amazing is we are amongst just me and Byron, our search results are 5 times that of Byron Donalds all over the state in every single Northwest Florida to Southwest to Southeast to Northeast. Our campaign is drawing real organic energy because there's a real hunger for a candidate who's going to stand up for Americans as opposed to stand up to immigrants and the like.
Okay. Well, with that, I really appreciate you taking out this time to join us. And so all of the Freedmen can also come back and join the Freedmen channel and watch this interview with James Fishback. And James, let me know, email me. I'm willing to support you on your campaign trail, whether it's calling, anything, events in South Florida, anything like that. You just let me know. I'm open to it. Okay. So
I'd be honored. Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
happy holidays to you too. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, let's end the stream. Okay, you all, that was James Fishback. We had a great conversation, great interview. I really enjoyed that. He did disclose some things that he is not for reparations, but he is. This is Florida. We already know how Florida moves, and this is one of the reasons why I stick to federal reparations, right? Because the federal government is the one that we must hold accountable due to the First Amendment, the rights to file redress against, file grievances for redress against your government is the federal government, right? So it would be the United States government, as well as the 14th Amendment. We know the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment is specific to the experiences of the formerly emancipated and their descendants. Hence, we have the whole situation coming up with the Supreme Court justices on the clarification of the 14th Amendment. I think that will align with some things of us not being protected, us having right to property, self-identify, pursuit of happiness. So we're going to take this reparations on a federal level in a different way. But in the meantime, I wanted to make sure you all had an option for those that are voting in Florida, for our freedmen in Florida. We know we got some great history in Florida, that we now see there is a takeover in Florida. We know that's happening. So we have to be steadfast in making sure that we have individuals that represent us in the state of Florida, at least representing Americans, and that we're getting cut in. As we see many of the immigrants, Byron Donalds is running for governor and he's already cutting us out. You know, he's going to cut us out. So with that, I wanted to say that I'm going to end the stream. I really appreciate you all joining. This has been very eventful, and we have it all recorded, so we get the whole Mr. James Fishback accountable. With that, I'm signing off, you all. Thank you.